Mr. Conrad, do you have any statements that you would like to make
No,
on behalf of your client?
no,
Any particular reason why?
because you're being an
Harsh words from an attorney to CBS 21's Chris Pabst after a woman was sentenced for cheating the welfare system out of more than $10,000. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Tanya Foster.
We first told you in November, I'm Rob Hanrahan, about the Lancaster County woman who won $330,000 in the PA lottery and then later committed welfare fraud. Today, she pleaded guilty to those charges.
CBS 21's Chris Pabst broke this story. He is live in our newsroom tonight with what happened in court today. Chris.
Well, Rob and Tanya, Jamie Frankfurt and her attorney, as you can see here, did everything they could to avoid our cameras today after she appeared in court to plead guilty to felony welfare fraud, a crime CBS 21 exposed before she was ever even charged. Mr. Conrad, do you have any statements that you would like to make
No,
on behalf of your client?
no,
Any particular reason why?
because you're being an
Jamie Frankfurt's attorney, Douglas Conrad, had strong words for us today
Hey, you having fun?
when we tried to get comment following his client's court date in Lancaster. Is it appropriate to use that kind of language?
Is it appropriate to harass me taking her to the probation office?
Back in November, CBS 21 first introduced you to Jamie Frankfurt.
Turn that camera off, please, and get off my property.
We're not on your property, ma'am. In January of 2012, Frankfurt won $330,000 in the Pennsylvania lottery, but continued to collect welfare by not reporting her winnings to the state. In December of last year, she was charged. Do you think it's right that the taxpayer should be subsidizing when you win that much money in the lottery? In court today, Frankfurt pled guilty to felony welfare fraud. She received 5 years probation and a $500 fine. She also can't collect welfare for 6 months, and the judge gave her 1 year to pay back the more than $10,000 in welfare she stole from the state. But given the charges against her, Frankfurt could have been fined $15,000 and spent 7 years in jail. We asked the Office of the Inspector General who investigated Frankfurt if her sentence is enough. We received this statement, quote, "As an investigative agency, we'd like to see strict penalties, and we'd hope that would be a deterrence. We try not to focus on one case over another in terms of sentencing." Is there anything you want to say, Ms. Frankfurt?
No, she doesn't.
Your client defrauded the Pennsylvania taxpayer out of more
And
than
she pled
$10,000. After Frankfurt's hearing, her attorney led her out a side door of the courthouse, avoiding our cameras, forcing me to shoot this entire sequence on my phone. Ms. Frankfurt, you don't have anything to say at all to the Pennsylvania taxpayer? Now, as a result of our story in November, House Bill 1489 was drafted. We have reported and told you about this. It forces the Department of Revenue in Pennsylvania to investigate all lottery winnings over $2,500 to see if the winner is on welfare. Now, in January, the House passed it unanimously. It has since stalled in the Senate. In the newsroom, Chris Pabst, CBS 21 News.
And we begin this half hour with a Waste Watch report. I'm Rob Hanrahan.
And I'm Tanya Foster. Social Security disability insurance is back in the news as the trust fund is now scheduled to run out of money in less than 2 years.
And when it comes to handing out disability benefits, no one in the nation comes close to a judge here in Harrisburg. CBS 21's Chris Pabst joins us with his investigation. Chris?
Well, Rob and Tanya, the Social Security disability insurance is a lifeline for millions who can't work. But like many federal programs, it's running out of money as enrollment numbers are now at record levels. As lawmakers in Washington try to fix the problem, much of the focus has centered on the judges who grant the benefits. And the judge who has granted the most benefits in America, amounting to billions of your tax dollars, is right here in Harrisburg.
I had a kidney transplant in 2004. Okay. It's rejecting.
The past decade for Kim Sullivan has been a struggle for her health.
Both my hips had to be replaced. My immune system went way down. I got shingles and had to be hospitalized. A blood clot in my fistula. I had squamous cell carcinoma that just had to be removed.
A few years ago, Sullivan's medical condition forced her to quit her job of 30 years as she waits for a new kidney. Her medical bills are mounting.
If I could, I would continue to work.
With her money running out, the 55-year-old recently applied for Social Security disability insurance. She was denied and has appealed. Now her case goes before a federal disability judge, and Harrisburg's Charles Bridges is the judge she wants. Since 2005, according to Social Security Administration statistics, Judge Bridges has awarded disability benefits to more than 15,000 people, by far the most of any judge in the country, an amount roughly 6 times the average and nearly double that of America's next highest active judge. With an estimated lifetime benefit of $300,000 per recipient, Judge Bridges has personally awarded approximately $4.6 billion in taxpayer dollars. Judge Bridges declined an interview with CBS 21 News. His lawyer sent us a statement saying the judge has filed a civil rights lawsuit against the Social Security Administration and is unwilling to comment. There's certain judges you would rather have over others.
Absolutely. No question about that.
Deborah Wallet is Sullivan's disability attorney.
Something must be wrong because each of those judges is supposed to be applying the same law. Grant rate ought to be about the same.
But our investigation revealed that's not the case. There are 1,500 disability judges in America, 75 in Pennsylvania. The average grant rate is 40%, but some judges like Bridges grant benefits at more than twice that percentage, while others like Leslie Perry Dowdle in Pittsburgh grant it less than half the average.
I have no explanation for the variation.
To try to get an explanation, we contacted the SSA, but received this response, quote, "We cannot address Judge Bridges' approval numbers, as this is an internal personnel issue." The SSA did tell us, however, that disability judges are appointed for life and are granted, quote, "decisional independence," which protects them from disciplinary measures, including removal, suspension, or reduction in grade or pay.
We know that the system is at a tipping point.
Currently, 11 million Americans receive disability, a 45% increase in the last decade. With taxpayers shelling out $128 billion annually, the trust fund is scheduled to run out of money in 2 years. If that happens, everyone on disability will see their benefits reduced, which has caught the attention of lawmakers.
If we do not aggressively deal with the fraud, we will see those in greatest need put in tremendous risk.
This is video of recent testimony in Washington with the chief disability judge for Pennsylvania.
Without being specific to Judge Bridges, we cannot tell a judge how to decide a case.
Judge Jasper Bede declined an interview with CBS 21 News, but he admitted to Congress that Judge Bridges' rulings were, quote, "an embarrassment," and he has inappropriately awarded benefits. But he also said policy and management makes him powerless to do anything about it.
If there is a judge that's out there that is not held to account, and there's not a good process to hold someone to account in that, we need to find a way to do that. All of us have accountability, all of us.
If I don't get a kidney soon, I'm going to start dialysis.
As Washington battles over how to save the disability fund, people like Sullivan are left battling for their lives. She expects her appeal to go before a judge sometime this winter. Until then, all she and her attorney can do is wait and hope.
Unfortunately, we don't have any control over who we get as the judge.
Now, the Social Security Administration does do the occasional disability review, but according to the House Oversight Committee you saw in the story, 99% of people approved for the benefit stay on it for life. Recently, limits have been placed on how many cases a judge can approve in a year, but the trust fund is scheduled to run out of money in 2016.
The numbers were not verifiable, factually inaccurate, in my opinion, an unfortunate example of irresponsible and sensationalist journalism.
A Harrisburg disability judge lashes out in front of Congress in Washington, D.C. about a CBS 21 report. And that's where we begin this half hour. I'm Rob Hanrahan.
And I'm Tanya Foster. It's a story you first saw on CBS 21 as part of our ongoing investigation into Social Security disability. In just 2 years, it's expected to be the first federal program to run out of money.
And when it comes to handing out disability benefits, no judge in the nation comes close to Harrisburg's Charles Bridges. CBS 21's Chris Pabst broke this exclusive story, and for the first time, we're hearing from the judge in his own words here.
Yeah, well, Rob and Tanya, as we've been reporting for months, we've been trying to get a hold of Harrisburg disability judge Charles Bridges, and for months he has denied our request for an interview. But now we have finally heard directly from him. Although he didn't talk to CBS 21 about our story, he spoke to the United States Congress.
This is preposterous.
Judge Charles Bridges was defiant when he recently testified before the U.S. House Oversight Committee.
We hear no set of cases that has these kind of specific parameters.
The Harrisburg judge was under fire and lashed out at our story, which exposed his record.
I have been a highly productive judge in the Social Security Administration because of my motivation and work ethic.
Back in May, CBS 21 reported that according to government sources since 2005, Judge Bridges has granted disability benefits to more than 15,000 people, by far the most of any judge in the country, an amount roughly 6 times the average and nearly double that of America's next highest active judge. Based on an average lifetime payout of $300,000, it's been estimated that Judge Bridges has personally awarded close to $4.6 billion in benefits.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
After our story aired, Judge Bridges was subpoenaed to testify before Congress. During his testimony, while under oath, he refuted our numbers, even though CBS 21 obtained them from the Social Security Administration. The figures were even used in prior committee testimony.
Judge Bridges basically, since 2005, has approved about $4.5 billion in benefits.
This Harrisburg CBS affiliate reported a figure of $4.6 billion of taxpayers' money. How erroneous a statement was that, and was contributed to my record. The numbers were not verifiable, factually inaccurate, in my opinion, an unfortunate example of irresponsible and sensationalist journalism.
The judge argued that placing a total value on his disability payments based on the average payout cannot be accurate since benefits vary for every recipient. A recent letter to CBS 21 by the judge's attorney, Alfonso Arnold of Harrisburg, expanded on this point. Arnold called it improper to compare disability judges based on productivity, since judges cannot consider factors outside the record and are bound by the Constitution to rule on each case individually.
Like the regulations need to be updated.
Also, during his testimony, Judge Bridges was questioned by Congress about his 90% grant rate, a figure CBS 21 also cited. But despite Judge Bridges apparently watching our story,
recently I was referenced in a Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, a CBS local affiliate.
He said he wasn't aware of that number.
You mean that you don't notice?
No.
That you're essentially saying approved, approved, approved almost all the time?
I don't notice because I don't want to be influenced. Each individual is due his just and accurate decision.
That is the most outstanding thing I've ever heard in this here. That's sort of like saying that you don't look at the speed limit signs because you don't want to be influenced by what speed is safe on the highway.
The scrutiny of the judge's performance went beyond what CBS 21 reported. He was also accused of granting disability benefits to 7,000 people without even holding a hearing.
I'm not aware of that.
That's what this hearing is doing, is making the committee and the public aware of your performance.
Well, I'm not I dispute that because I'm not aware of, I was not counting times that were holding hearings.
The judge, who earns $165,000 a year, concluded his testimony with this.
I'm satisfied that I've done the best I can. I can't address what any other judge has done, but to do what I can do to the cases that I have.
Now, the day after Judge Bridges testified, the chairman of the Oversight Committee, Darrell Issa, called for his firing, saying the judge is, quote, incompetent. But the acting director of the Social Security Administration, during her testimony, showed no interest in removing Judge Bridges from the bench. For CBS 21 News, I'm Chris Pabst.
Now to a CBS 21 Waste Watch report, $50 billion in debt and growing. Pennsylvania's pension crisis is back in the headlines ahead of this year's elections.
And that's debt we're all going to pay for, even though it was the actions of just a few that created the mess.
CBS 21's Chris Pabst has more in his investigation.
The headlines are everywhere, and it doesn't look good.
The crisis is not enough workers have pensions.
Our state faces a giant pension crisis that, if not corrected,
we have a Ponzi scheme,
could affect generations of Pennsylvanians.
If this is not dealt with, there will be no property tax relief.
This list, obtained via right-to-know requests, show just how generous lawmakers have been with our money. High annual payouts like these certainly make for good headlines, but it's the reason behind these numbers that tells the real story.
The government certainly played a very big role in causing the problem because people got greedy.
This is one of the largest financial burdens that any generation has placed on another generation.
In 2001, estimates show the state pension system was flush with cash, 130% funded, which amounted to a giant pot of money Harrisburg just couldn't leave alone. That year, our elected leaders passed a law giving themselves a 50% pension increase and 25% for 350,000 state employees. It was also made retroactive for every year worked, but funding for the program was not increased. 13 years and 2 market crashes later, 130% funded is now 60%. Equaling $50 billion in debt.
Was that vote a mistake, looking back?
Yeah, I should not have made that vote.
If you had to go back, you would change your vote on that.
Absolutely.
Representatives Stan Saylor and Ron Miller of York County are 2 of 56 remaining lawmakers who voted for the increase.
The governor's office was looking for a yes vote on that, and that had to do with the vesting period.
At that time, the actuarials that advised the State General Assembly said it was perfectly fine. There were no financial problems with it.
Former Governor Tom Ridge signed the pension increase into law. He gave CBS 21 this statement, quote, "Clearly over time, the estimates have not worked out as had been projected by our budget team. With the benefit of hindsight, that's one I'd really like to have back."
We have a big problem. We have a huge problem.
James McEnany is the executive director of the Public Employees Retirement Commission. It's his job to advise lawmakers on pensions. Here's what he's telling them.
Down the road, we can foresee that this is going to collapse.
From a complete pension overhaul to mere tweaks, our lawmakers can't seem to agree on a solution. But McEnany says every day the pension crisis is not addressed, taxpayer debt grows by $10 million. Our options are quickly becoming limited to raising taxes or cutting programs.
I tend not to be terribly optimistic, but I am also enough of a realist to say that at some point they're going to have to do something.
Reporting for CBS 21 News, I'm Chris Pabst.
In 2010, 9 years after that vote, the pension increase was rolled back, but the damage had already been done. Now some lawmakers have proposed changing the system to a 401k style plan, but others believe the rollback in 2010 should be given time to work. So for now, it doesn't look like much will be done.
Well, we begin this half hour with a Waste Watch investigation. Glad you're with us. I'm Rob Hanrahan.
And I'm Tanya Foster. We've uncovered that Harrisburg has opened an internal investigation into tens of thousands of dollars that's just gone.
CBS 21's Chris Pabst is live in Harrisburg with this exclusive story. Chris?
Well, Rob and Tanya, right now this investigation is an internal one, but sources tell CBS 21 News that outside authorities may be called in because the details are complex, and whatever did happen took place when Brenda Alton and Linda Thompson were in charge of Harrisburg, and now both are current candidates for higher office. Harrisburg is a financially crippled city that needs all the cash it can get. But CBS 21 has learned in recent years, one department within the city has seen its cash flow plummet. by tens of thousands. This financial information obtained by CBS 21 News is the focus of the investigation. It shows from 2005 to 2009, revenues for Parks and Rec were fairly consistent. The department collected an average of $117,000 a year between the 4th of July, Kepona, and 2 city pools. But starting in 2010, the proceeds began to drastically fall. By 2012, what had averaged $117,000 became $22,000, $190,000 in difference over the 3-year period.
It's basically a house of cards, and the cards are coming down.
This decrease in revenue happened when the city could least afford it. It was during those years that Harrisburg was defaulting on its debt, and City Council had filed for bankruptcy. The question the city is now asking is, where did the money go? In early March, CBS 21 tried to find out by filing this right-to-know request with the city. We asked for Parks and Recreation revenue dating back to 2000, bank accounts created by city employees using Parks and Rec money, and emails with then-Director Brenda Alton concerning these matters. Nearly 2 months later, we received this response, quote, "The documents that you requested are currently the subject of an investigation and cannot be released. As such time that these documents are no longer the subject of an investigation, the city may release the documents." Following that denial, Harrisburg's solicitor released this statement to CBS 21 News, quote, "The city cannot comment upon or otherwise advise your organization on the nature, existence, or status of such matters, unless and until any such matter has been concluded."
I will fight for the citizens of this Commonwealth so that your vote and your voice translates into jobs.
Brenda Alton was the director of Parks and Rec from 2011 to 2014. She is currently on the campaign trail as an independent candidate for lieutenant governor. Her campaign gave us this statement, quote, "We feel this has nothing to do with Dr. Alton's tenure as director of Parks and Rec. During her time with the city, there were no issues concerning her handling of finances. We will let the investigation speak for itself. If the conclusion warrants a response, we will provide one." Now, former Mayor Linda Thompson, who's currently the Democratic candidate for U.S. Congress in York County, vying for that seat in York County, she says she's not aware of any investigation or any wrongdoing. She was mayor of Harrisburg from 2010 to 2014.
And now a CBS 21 News Waste Watch report, using taxpayer-funded resources for political purposes.
And that's a crime in Pennsylvania, but some say that's exactly what public sector unions are doing with your money. CBS 21's Chris Pabst live here with more on his investigation. Chris.
Well, Rob and Tanya, this is an issue that has people on both sides of the aisle motivated. Now, for decades in Pennsylvania, state unions have used a public payroll system to collect dues. But in 2010, the U.S. Supreme Court changed the rules, allowing unions to directly engage in politics. So now those dues collected publicly can be used politically. And that has ignited a battle over what is known as paycheck protection. It's an issue that has the unions energized.
Seeing all these unions actually on the same side is exactly what statement we need to be making in this state.
But the opposition is determined.
We should not be using taxpayer resources to fund politics.
This fight is over paycheck protection, and it works like this. When unionized public employees like teachers, toll collectors, and road workers get paid, their dues are automatically deducted by the state and transferred to the union. Since the payroll system is funded with taxpayer dollars and union dues are used for political purposes, a battle has ensued.
I don't believe that using public assets for political purposes should be legal for anybody.
Representative Brian Cutler of Lancaster has sponsored legislation to ban unions from using the payroll system. Government figures show in 2013, Pennsylvania's largest public sector unions collected $170 million and spent $9 million of that for political advocacy.
You'll never walk me down the aisle on my wedding day.
including commercials like this.
Tell your state senator to say no to liquor privatization. We don't want other children to lose their parents.
Money for that ad was transferred to the union by the state payroll system. Cutler and his supporters equate this to politicians like Mike Vion and Bill DeWeese, who used taxpayer resources for political purposes and went to jail.
Why do we treat essentially the same kind of activity differently?
We're not using taxpayer dollars to do something illegal.
Rick Bloomingdale is the president of the AFL-CIO.
What they're trying to do is silence the voices of workers.
Bloomingdale admits it would be expensive for unions to collect their own dues, and he's not arguing unions aren't political. Just look at his office. But this system was set up 40 years ago, and he says it makes sense to continue using it. Plus, since it's all electronic, the cost to taxpayers is impossible to calculate.
All the government unions are willing to pay the state for whatever those administrative fees would be.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've never received a bill from the state.
Not a one.
Why do you think that is?
Because it doesn't cost anything.
For me, it's not so much the monetary concern, it's really an ethical concern.
This legislation just looks more like a political move.
A move Harrisburg Representative Patty Kim feels lawmakers should avoid. Payroll deduction is negotiated into union contracts. Kim says that is where this debate should stay.
The unions naturally feel like they're being attacked because this is something that they can discuss and agree on behind closed doors.
Nathan Benefield with the Commonwealth Foundation.
It's just the, privilege that union bosses have that no other political group has.
Says new laws must be passed. He points to a recent Susquehanna polling survey that showed 58% of Pennsylvania union households support the legislation.
Workers might support Commonwealth Foundation's agenda, but if we said, hey, you should take money out of every worker's paycheck to give to the Commonwealth Foundation, there'd be an outcry. But that's exactly what we're doing at the state level for unions.
Now, it should be pointed out that firemen and policemen are exempt from this legislation. Unions say that's because it's purely political. Supporters say it's because emergency personnel are under a different section of the law since they can't strike, making passing that new legislation more difficult. And Governor Corbett did announce today that he would support paycheck protection if it did get to his desk.
And we begin this half hour with a Waste Watch story and CBS 21 exclusive investigation. Glad you're with us. I'm Rob Hanrahan.
And I'm Chris Pabst in for Tanya Foster. It's been a rough summer for Attorney General Kathleen Kane. First, she was heavily criticized for not pressing charges against the so-called Philly Five, and then for selectively releasing sexually charged emails from the Attorney General's office. Well, now CBS 21 has been able to confirm that Attorney General Kathleen Kane has doubled her security detail from previous attorneys general, costing taxpayers at least an extra $85,000 a year. In the hierarchy of Pennsylvania government, few elected officials receive a taxpayer-funded security detail. This service is limited to the governor, lieutenant governor, their families, and the attorney general. These security details have remained consistent through recent administrations, but CBS 21 has learned Attorney General Kathleen Kane has doubled her protection from her predecessors Linda Kelly and Tom Corbett. Via right-to-know requests, CBS 21 obtained documents showing Kane increased the AG's security detail from one agent to two. CBS 21 has honored a request from the AG's office to conceal the agents' identities, but the documents we obtained shows one makes more than $85,000 and the other nearly $97,000, costing taxpayers just about $182 grand a year, which does not include expenses, just to protect the Attorney General. Documents show both agents, including Kane, are based in Scranton, meaning all three make the 125-mile trek from Lackawanna County to the Capitol nearly every day in the same car.
As a statewide elected official, she's supposed to demonstrate shared sacrifice. She's supposed to be a leader.
Eric Epstein is with Rock the Capitol, a government watchdog group, who questions why Kane requires more security than previous AGs.
The bottom line is she needs to justify why she requires an entourage to commute long distances every day at taxpayers' expense. It's a legitimate question. Taxpayers demand to know. She owes us an answer.
To get that answer, CBS 21 contacted Kane's office and received this statement, quote, "Security needs are routinely evaluated and protection is assigned to the Attorney General as necessary for the given day and location. The office does not discuss day-to-day assignments due to safety concerns." Now, Kane's security detail is made up of agents from the AG's office. The governor, lieutenant governor, and their families are protected by state police. And as the PA taxpayer is paying for 2 agents to now protect our attorney general, Florida's AG, for example, does not have a security detail. You can watch all of our Waste Watch investigations on CBS21.com.